Welcome back to the Guna Fanzine Arsenal Women podcast. It's the first one of 2025, so Happy New Year to you all. I'm alongside Claudia Loy, and there's only one thing really we've got to talk about today because Arsenal Women are back in action on Sunday against Bristol City in the FA Cup fourth round, but a certain former manager in Jonas Eidevall, just shy of 3 months since he resigned from Arsenal, leaving Renee Slager's in interim charge. He's joined San Diego Wave in America in the NWSL, which has meant it's the first time he's had the opportunity or wanted to speak to media since that departure from North London. Claudia Loy, I think we've probably been waiting for what Jonas has had to say. Whether we expected him to be this honest and perhaps revealing about his exit from Arsenal, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Happy New Year. But yeah, no, it's good to be back, and yeah, that was an interesting kind of read yesterday. I don't think anyone was really expecting it, like you said, and yeah, he's been very honest, which I guess is to be respected, and he's probably looking forward to a new challenge, I would say, in San Diego, and I think people have sort of said it suits his playing style a little bit more in the NWSL. So yeah, obviously wish him all the best. But yeah, we can go into the Arsenal side of things. Yeah, it was quite revealing about the structures of the club and what's happening at board level, and the need for a sporting director. I'm not sure what Claire Wheatley's official title is.
Yeah,
do you know?
It's Director of Women's Football, so that makes it more of like an overseeing role, whereas sporting director probably works a little bit closer, day to day with the manager. But there are so many sort of different ways of putting it. That's why the comments were quite interesting, because it's not like he was saying I wanted a sporting director and sort of throwing shade at Claire Wheatley and the fact that they did have one. Arsenal don't have a sporting director for the women's team, but they have a director of women's football. So I wonder if he's almost, probably it's critical of Claire Wheatley and the system that Arsenal have, to start with that, but also it's saying, actually, I need this specific role. That's what I've got at the San Diego Wave. But it does make you think, how different is Claire Wheatley's role to that? If Jonas Eidevall is saying, look, we're crying out for a sporting director, this was really difficult because we didn't have one, but you do have a director of women's football. So there's obviously an issue there. And I think we know Arsenal fans have been critical of Claire Wheatley. I know there's probably lack of transparency in terms of what she does and, what exactly she's involved in. That doesn't help her cause, I think, those comments, even if they maybe weren't aimed at her.
Yeah, exactly. I think you just got the sense from the article that he wanted someone to work with more closely rather than having to deal with, lots of different people who all have interests which are maybe commercial, or maybe they have sort of competing interests about what's best for the club and stuff. So I think he probably felt like he was a bit of an island in the sense. And yeah, I think he carried a lot of weight on that side of things. Like, I suppose similar to Arteta on the men's side, that he's had a big influence over everything, and I think maybe he just wanted more security and sort of assistance with decision making rather than it all being on him, transfers and that kind of thing. And obviously, Claire Wheatley probably is involved in that, but like you said, there's not that much transparency about what she actually does on a day-to-day basis. So she's clearly involved in transfers, but how that fits into the team and how the team plays week in, week out is interesting. And maybe that was part of the problem, him sort of carrying the responsibility for day-to-day training results, that kind of thing, but also dealing with the commercial and transfer side of things.
It shines a bit of light, I sense, on the managerial search, and the fact that we're nearly 3 months on since Jonas Eidevall's departed. He's taken his time, found himself a new club over in America, whilst Arsenal still wait to officially confirm his permanent successor. Now, Tom Gary of The Guardian said yesterday he expects managerial news before the Crystal Palace game, and he understands that Renee Slagers has been interviewed by Arsenal, which obviously suggests that she does want the job, which obviously has been a bit of a sticking point in the fact that she hasn't committed either way. The fact it's taken this long to even interview Renee Slagers after she's still unbeaten. She's won all but one, I think, game in charge. She ended the calendar year with that win over Bayern Munich. But we're a week into January and she's only just been interviewed. This seems like a slow process, because if you're going to give your interim manager time and say we're going to give ourselves time to see maybe if she's the right candidate, maybe our other outstanding candidates out there, if Renee Slagers is seen as a very good candidate and you spent 3 months now looking for someone who's going to be even better than her, and you're risking it, leaving that time to think, can we get somebody else who's even better than our very good interim manager? The chances are, when you've looked for 3 months and there's no obvious names, as we understand really, the chances are there's not an outstanding candidate out there, and it's confusing now, and it feels like with the fans, if it's not Renee, good luck to whoever comes in, because they're not going to be popular from the start.
Yeah, it's difficult because the grass is always greener in that sense. Like, there isn't an outstanding candidate, but say she does get the role and doesn't do brilliantly in the second half of the season, people will be saying, why didn't we go external? So in some ways, you can't win. But I think, like you said, someone who's had such a good record in her interim role while she has been in charge, it's almost a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it, really? At least till the end of the season. I know some people think that that's probably not good either because it doesn't really offer stability, but I understand why Arsenal are a bit hesitant, because she doesn't have maybe as much experience as some other sort of candidates for the role. And also they just want to exhaust their options because it is a long-term appointment, and they can't really afford to get it wrong because, Arsenal are a big club and results are important, and also like there is a pressure to win trophies because we haven't done, the FA Cup and the league. We haven't won that in a while. So, I would like her to get the role. I think that would be great. Because I don't think, there's no guarantee that someone will come in and do a better job than her. So, it is a bit frustrating that it's taken so long, but it'll be interesting to see when we do get, an announcement who that will be. Do you have any kind of ideas about who you think it will be?
No, it's all very, very tight-lipped at the moment, isn't it? And even, when you speak to journalists who are, sort of more in the know than I am, there's still very little understanding of who actually has been interviewed. Obviously, we had the Nick Cushing news, feels like a lifetime ago now, and obviously that all died down even after he was sacked by New York City. But what we do know, Claudia, is that with Chelsea and Manchester City away coming up at the end of January and the start of next month, you want to get a new manager if it's not going to be Renee. And, if it's not Renee, it's almost, we don't trust Renee perhaps in these couple of games. We need to get someone else in before that. I mean, that's a difficult start because you've got Crystal Palace, and then it's Brighton, I think, in the Subway Cup. In fact, Brighton in the Subway Cup after Crystal Palace. And then you're going away to Chelsea and Manchester City. So it feels like the time to act is now to get somebody in.
Yeah, because those games, I guess, are what the club has been waiting for, just to really see how we perform in those tough away games. And Jonas has a good record in those, bar the Chelsea game last season. That wasn't great at Stamford Bridge. But, there is, I think those two results will be important because we are, I know we said at the beginning that we're not, I sort of said, I'm not sure about the title, but actually we are still in it. Obviously it's going to be difficult, but if we win those two away games, it is up for grabs. So I think I'd like to see, obviously there will be an announcement soon, so I'd like to see her in that role. And she did well against Bayern, which is a difficult game as well. So I think there's no reason not to at this point. I think you risk losing her to another club as well, like Aston Villa are looking for someone. So
Yeah, and obviously if she almost doesn't get the job and maybe fans are given the impression she doesn't want it, but then Aston Villa come in and she says yes to Aston Villa and obviously does well, then that's again where you have that sort of Miedema problem where it might look really bad at the time, but then it can then hinge on what happens when she goes away. But as I wrote earlier this week, I think we forget with Renee that she has had success as a manager before. It's not like this is her first rodeo in terms of management. She has done it before. She succeeded Jonas Eidevall at Rosengard, won 2 league titles. So if she was happy to do that on a permanent basis but isn't at Arsenal, then that's obviously probably concerning in some ways. But the fact she's been interviewed, if you don't want the job, you don't go for an interview, do you? So hopefully that's a good sign for those of us who do want to see Renee given the job. Jonas Eidevall told, I think it was a Swedish website, Aftonbladet, I might well have said that wrong, said about Renee Slegers, I find Renee to be a great leader. She's got good values, strong football knowledge, and it makes me very happy to see the good results and performance that she, the team and the coaching team have put together. I really hope that people see the opportunity for them to continue. I think that would be the best thing for the club. And following up on that, of course, Claire Wheatley and Arsenal didn't sack Jonas Eidevall. Jonas Eidevall resigned. The club were not concerned enough by the performances under Jonas Eidevall at the start of the season to actually sack him. So to basically keep on his assistant head coach, keep playing in a way that style of football whilst making a lot of good tactical, changes that Renee Slegers has. That's the thing, is that actually Arsenal didn't want to sack Jonas Eidevall. So is there a need for a drastic change of a new manager? Because the fact that Arsenal didn't sack him suggests no.
No, and I know we did come on here after those results, and it was all a bit when he did leave, and we were saying, maybe it was time, and the performances haven't been good enough. But when you look back, actually, I think they are right in what the club is saying and what the players are saying. I mean, in that you don't have to go back to square one. Like, it wasn't a crisis. Yes, the results and the performances weren't up to scratch, but you don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater and change everything. Like, we have a good squad. We have a lot of tactical kind of flexibility, and players are used to doing that. And honestly, like, I don't think there have been many games apart from that Chelsea game and obviously the Bayern game this season where we've really looked like we were, just never going to win. Mostly in the big games we have been competitive, and we did struggle against low blocks, but I think that is something that can be worked on with tactical tweaks, definitely. But yeah, I just think in general, like, we have to improve, but I don't think that the performances at the beginning of the season were awful. I think it was yes, under par, and the results were not what you'd expect, but I also just think sometimes in football that does happen. Sometimes players do just go through periods of bad form, and I think it was time for a change at the top, but also the players, like they said, have to take responsibility as well. So
yeah, very interesting. And you talk about some of the disappointing results. Obviously, Eidevall's final game was against Chelsea, and he revealed to Sky Sports he had decided personally before the Chelsea game that it would be the best decision to step away. Now, just flicking back through the calendar, obviously that was in October. Arsenal lost to Bayern Munich on Wednesday the 9th. They played Chelsea in the lunchtime kickoff on Saturday the 12th. So what time did Jonas Eidevall decide, this was it, I can't take this team any further, I need to go? Because if it was straight after the Bayern game, I cannot fathom why he stayed on and thought, I'm going to go anyway, but I'm going to lead them against Chelsea, instead of maybe giving them the opportunity to get Renee Slegers in, get an interim manager in. Of course, in hindsight, it might look great because Renee could have come in and done her thing. But if Jonas knew perhaps after the Bayern game, and he's obviously not revealed that, but he said before the Chelsea game he knew, these are an important, free drop point in Arsenal's season, and there was a manager there who knew before the game it was going to be his last in charge. This this is where fans, I think, are right to be critical of Jonas Eidevall, because once you know you've taken the team as far as you can, you need to step away as soon as you can. And also, this needs to be communicated with Arsenal, surely, as well. Or Arsenal, this is where you need to have the conversations with him. Why was no one at Arsenal saying to him after the buying game, how do you feel, and giving him the opportunity to actually say, yeah, I think this is as much as I can do. This seems a little bit mad to me.
Yeah. Obviously, we don't know the conversations that I have had behind the scenes, but yeah, it was a kind of, I suppose, yeah, the buying game was one of the key performance indicators, for the season, I think, and obviously that went really badly. So he probably did know after that it was, the writing was kind of on the wall. And then obviously just that week that we had with Everton, Chelsea, and Bayern, at the end of that, it was probably like he saw no way forward. But yeah, you're probably right. I think there probably did need to be more communication, and just a more decisive action maybe from the club. But like you said, in hindsight, everything's 2020, isn't it? So yeah, it's difficult to say at the time. But yeah, I guess it's just nice now that we have the opportunity to kind of build something new under someone else.
Yeah, very interesting, especially considering after the game he was sort of asked, are you the right man to take Arsenal forward? And he sort of batted away those questions. So yeah, I'm not sure. I think we have to take a few comments here with a pinch of salt, and that one is definitely an interesting one, because look, I think a lot of people have said, respect to Eidevall for making that decision to step away, do what's best for the team. But hanging on for one more game with a dressing room, that were obviously down after that buying game. I'm not quite sure what the thinking was there. Just finally, on Jonas Eidevall, he talked about the Vivianne Miedema decision, obviously, for her to move on at the end of last season. I don't want to open up a entire new discourse, because that's obviously normally challenging. But Claudia, what was revealed is essentially Jonas was dealt the decision of keep Miedema or sign Mariona Caldente from Barcelona. Obviously, this couldn't be made clear to fans at the time. As things stand, halfway through the season, football basis, that's paid off. Mariona's done really well. Miedema's taken a little bit of time to click, and then obviously had her injury problems at Manchester City. Will this make fans see that Miedema decision a little bit differently now, knowing that Mariona's come in?
I think so. We actually had a question asking if we think that Viv would have stayed if Renee was the manager. I think I have said this on the podcast before. I think it's easy to say that it was Jonas, but I think someone like Viv would have wanted a new challenge anyway, because I think the way that she sees football, like she said when she left, was like she thinks that the style of play is really important, and I think maybe it just didn't quite fit with what Arsenal were doing at that time. But I think I don't think she would have stayed. But I also think that the stuff about them clashing as personalities, I mean, he kind of said in that interview that it wasn't that, it was just that they're both strong characters and they actually didn't have a bad relationship, but it was more just like a business decision, at the end of the day. So it has paid off in football terms. But yeah, it would be nice to have Viv in the squad still, but you can't have everything you want in life, I suppose.
Yeah, and interesting in the fact that on the final day of the season, when people are shouting Jonas out and booing him over this decision, there's probably a part of him that wants to turn around and say, look, we're going to sign Mariona Caldente. And I think at the time, probably fans were still skeptical now. And what I always says was, if Miedema goes away and does incredibly and makes Arsenal regret the decision, then obviously we'll see it differently. But we've got to give it almost a season to then weigh out whether it was the right decision. And as you say, look, Miedema said a couple of months ago she had decided the winter before that she was probably going to leave Arsenal at the end of the season. In fact, she had tried in December, January last year to try and explore the possibility of moves as well. So I think the more that's come out, the more we know it's not all a Jonas Eidevall decision. It's more of a club decision. He said to get both Mariona and Miedema from a club decision was never possible, and probably even from a squad management decision to have all of those forward players and sort of then bring in a new number 10 or winger was probably going to make it difficult as well. All of the Jonas Eidevall quotes, you're looking at Sports Illustrated and Sky Sports, and as I say, that Swedish website Aftonbladet. I've done a bit of a roundup on the Guna Fanzine website as well with most of those, but a lot to learn. Has it made you? I feel like we haven't really talked about Jonas Eidevall at all, really, since he's gone. How do you reflect on his time now? Is there anything that's changed in your mind after he's come out and some of the stuff he said? What stands out to you?
Yeah, I think he seems like someone who is very committed to Arsenal, and it obviously he just wants what's best for the team. He said that it makes him happy to see the team doing well. So I think obviously it's never going to be a perfect ending because of what happened and the results and stuff. But yeah, I think he'll look back on his time there with some time and distance from it and feel, proud. It wasn't a disaster by any means. I think we had some moments of success, and hopefully from now it's just up from here.
And very interested to see how he does over there as well with San Diego Wave. Obviously, Naomi Gurma, if he fancied, giving us her phone number and shipping her across. I'm not sure why I'd want to, but that's obviously one little connection. And then, of course, having to make phone calls to Emma Hayes, as he was sort of touched on in that Sky Sports interview, and saying maybe I'll be talking to one of her assistants instead. And still, those two haven't spoken at all since that Conti Cup final incident. And that's another thing that just seems like it happened absolutely ages ago. Let's touch on Sunday then. Bristol City in the FA Cup. A very decent championship side. As I said to Daisy, I saw them at Bramall Lane earlier this season, and they beat Sheffield United by 4-2. It's a really, really exciting Women's Championship title race at the moment. Sunderland are 5th with 17 points. League leaders Birmingham City of 20, as do Bristol City in second with a goal difference that's worse by 2. London City are third and Durham are fourth. Both of those have got 19 points, but Bristol City's final league game of last year was a 5-0 win over Durham. So they're coming in to this game in a whole lot of form, and they know how to score goals as well. They've kept a lot of the team that they got relegated with last season. And I think they'll fancy their chances, won't they? They'll know, obviously, they're massive underdogs. But as, when you look at the championship teams and the lower teams you could get, this probably isn't an ideal draw for Arsenal. They'll obviously be able to rotate a little bit, but this is a good Bristol City side, and I'm interested to see how they approach it.
They will be up for it. But the only thing I would say is that we've had a rest now. We were looking a little bit tired towards the end. That Bayern Munich game at home was the last game, and that was before the break, and that was difficult. We looked a bit tired, but I think we'll be refreshed now. And like you said, we can rotate. We've got a bigger squad than they do. And I think we'll just have too much quality for them, even with a rotated squad. But I do think they'll be... They won't be a complete walkover, I think we will have to, it's not going to be like play the kids type of thing. But I think we should win quite comfortably. Yeah,
Bristol City, a couple of signings this week. Leah O'Leary from the Irish League and Shamrock Rovers, and then Jess Simpson coming in on loan from Manchester United. They've got a good forward line, though. Amelie Testrup, Jamie Lee Napier and Lexi Lloyd-Smith as well. So plenty of attacking threat, but obviously teams don't often come to Meadow Park and look to attack Arsenal from the offset, and that's obviously where some of the problems can come. Finally, back at Meadow Park, are you there on Sunday? Because obviously the Bayern Munich game, such a cracking atmosphere as we expected, and all of these Meadow Park games, as you've written about for the Guna before, they all just feel they're a little bit of a treat, aren't they now?
Yeah, they're quite special. I missed the Bayern one, unfortunately, because I didn't get a ticket to the Emirates game originally, so I couldn't apply for a ticket. But yeah, I'm going to this one on Sunday and looking forward to it. I think, it'll be a good atmosphere again because we've been away from there for a while and obviously away from the team for a while. So yeah, it'll be nice to get behind them and hopefully score a lot of goals and celebrate
Mm.
with the team.
Yeah, double FA Cup day on Sunday, isn't it? Because the men play Manchester United at 3 o'clock, so everyone will be rushing off at full time, finding the nearest pub, and then watching that. And obviously, it's a big week in the cup after last night for the men as well. So a lot going on. It's a month of cup football, really, because Arsenal, as we say, still have that Subway Cup game. And then it's Crystal Palace and Chelsea in the league before travelling to Manchester City. So they sort of build up quite nicely this month into those two massive games at the end of January, start of February. But very interesting to see. It could be Rene Slagers' last game in charge if Arsenal go with a new manager. Still a lot to happen. I feel like it's going to be a busy month, even without loads of football for Arsenal women. And obviously we'll have all of the updates in this managerial search on the Gooner Fanzine website. I'll be there on Sunday as well. So I'll see you there, Claudia, and I'm sure there'll be a few of us going out to watch that Manchester United Arsenal game afterwards as well. So looking forward to being back at Meadow Park. Thanks as ever for joining me.
No problem. See you soon, everyone.